Mike Tyson. With the heavyweight championship crown came all the jewels, the million-dollar mansions and luxury cars and beautiful women. So how could this legendary champ who fought so hard, who achieved so much, end up losing it all both in and out of the ring? Let's look behind the tabloid headlines and discover how this great fighter became the fallen champ.
And Tyson was never meant to be a great champion. He didn't have the character. He was meant to be a shooting star. He was meant to be a sensational shooting star.
It was like watching a pilot for a movie. Here's this kid, 13 years old. He's in reformatory. His life is about to head towards Attica or death.
He was a great, great boxer.
Walked the customer was taking my gloves off. I said, "What do you think?" He said, "That's a heavyweight champion of the world."
That was a right to the body and an uppercut to the head, and Berbick is down.
And he's down again and in serious trouble.
He cannot control his temper.
Mrs. Tyson did not want to sign a domestic violence complaint.
He was a womanizer. There's no other way to describe him. He loved women, and women loved him.
And I was like, say, no, get off me, please, get off me. And he was like, don't fight me, don't fight me.
And I think that Mike Tyson is unjustly incarcerated. I think in Mike Tyson's particular case, the due process was derailed. We got to put it back on track again.
I was asked, after 3 years in prison, could Mike Tyson beat Lennox Lewis? And I said, Mike Tyson can beat Lennox Lewis after 3 minutes in the electric chair.
And I still believe I'm the best fighter in the world.
Michael Gerard Tyson was born into crushing poverty on June 30th, 1966. Tyson doesn't like to talk about his early days on the streets of a Brooklyn ghetto. There are no pictures of his mother, Lorna, but Michael was the third child in the family fathered by Jimmy Kirkpatrick. Kirkpatrick never married Lorna Tyson, so it was her last name that he was given. The Tysons, close to destitute, lived in Brownsville, one of Brooklyn's toughest neighborhoods. Kirkpatrick abandoned the family before Mike's second birthday. And some would say Tyson spent most of his first 25 years searching for a father figure to replace him. Young Mike was physically huge, but he had a sensitive nature, a high-pitched voice, and a lisp. The other children in the neighborhood picked on him mercilessly, taunting him with the name Big Head Mike. Friends say Tyson probably started fighting on the street as a matter of self-preservation as much as anything else. Perhaps it was for food and money to survive. Perhaps it was rage born out of the teasing and taunting he'd endured. Tyson turned to muggings and robberies and would be arrested several times before the age of 12.
Mike says when he was 9 years old, he was hanging out with kids 13, 14 years old because he was physically their size, but mentally, he wasn't there.
He talked a lot about, seemingly unashamedly, about some of the bad things he did, mugging old ladies and doing, pulling off these mugging incidents, and as if, this is me and this was part of me, and take it for what it's worth.
Tyson was in and out of reformatories, winding up in the Tryon School for Boys in upstate Johnstown, New York. Tyson had already decided he wanted to be a boxer and asked to see a staff member named Bobby Stewart, who'd been a professional and who taught at the facility. Stewart told the 12-year-old if he wanted to box, he'd have to straighten out. The words changed Tyson's life forever.
I remember him the first time I saw him, they were marching through the biggest staff on campus. We're marching him through from their place to ours. They said, he's coming. We had to put him in a holding room, lockup room. And they said, Stewie, to me, they said, he's bad. He's uncontrollable, fighting everything. He doesn't go his way. He said, Mr. Stewart, he said, I want to become a fighter. And I said, yeah, so are the rest of you guys. I said, but if you look, it takes you got to be a fighter. You got to be tough, disciplined. He said, you obviously aren't, or you wouldn't be here in the first place. And I said, I'll work with you. I said, if your behavior continues, one slip, I said, and you're done. I'm not going to spend my time. So it was just remarkable. I told him when you go to school, I said, I don't care if you flunk every subject, but you behave. You behave, you don't act out, and you try.
For 12-year-old Mike Tyson, perfecting the moves he learned from Stewart became an obsession. Long after lights out in the reform school, guards would hear Tyson grunting as he practiced into the night in the dark in his room. Perfecting technique became Tyson's obsession, and it didn't stop when he left Tryon, as Stewart found out when they went back into the ring.
He hit me with a jab. I'd never been hit. I'd never been hit with a jab like that ever. It rocked me, but I couldn't let him know. I grabbed him and tied him up, and so I acted like nothing went on. Boom, hit me again. Again, I tied him. I don't think he knew, because I wouldn't let on. If I let on, I couldn't let him overtake the staff.
Bobby Stewart had trained in a small gym above the police station in the tiny town of Catskill, New York, learning his boxing from a veteran teacher named Cus D'Amato. D'Amato had also coached 2 world champions, Floyd Patterson and Jose Torres. So when Stewart's pupil Mike Tyson showed real promise, it was only natural that he would bring Tyson to D'Amato for a tryout. In 1979, into this ring, and with D'Amato looking on, began to spar with Stewart.
He was 27 years old, Stewart, and a former professional fighter. So obviously someone who should handle a 12-year-old kid. And Tyson showed extraordinary power and forced Stewart to open up to a point just to keep him in his place.
You know, we always won 3 rounds. And after the second round, he was forcing me, you know, pushing me into the corner and stuff. I popped him. It wasn't really that hard, but it made his nose bleed and spread.
He got a bloody nose. And after the second round, I told him I had seen enough.
And Mike said, we never stop after 2 rounds. We always go 3 rounds. And I saw Cus look over at one of the old timers he was with. And I said, boy, I got his attention already. We went to the 3rd round. He was good as ever. And right there, I walked over to him, and I walked to Cus. Cus was taking my gloves off. And I said, what do you think? He said, it's a heavyweight champion of the world.
At age 12, after a start that was far from promising, including crime, reform school, and no father, Mike Tyson's life suddenly had possibilities that didn't involve prison. Veteran trainer Cus D'Amato not only agreed to work with the young fighter, he took Tyson into the home he shared with Camille Ewald. The couple already had several young boxers living with them at the time. But when first offered the chance to live in the huge white house with its sprawling lawns, and when told he'd have a room of his own, Tyson couldn't believe it.
He said, here's a kid coming out of a bad setting, going through a lot of stuff fast, moving in, you know, a black kid moving in with I think they're all white people. It's hard to adjust. I mean, he was scared. When I first brought him down here, I brought him into Cus's driveway. He said, what am I going to do? What's this? I said, this is where you're going to stay. Me? What am I going to do here? Take the garbage out?
It was like watching a pilot for a movie. Here's this kid, 13 years old. He's in reformatory. His life is about to head towards Attica or death. And there's Cus, this then, 72-year-old old Italian guy from the Belmont section of the Bronx who's thinking his career was over. He had these 2 great champions in the 50s, Jose Torres and Floyd Patterson, and now he just was working with amateurs and delinquent kids, and he gets a new lease on life. Bobby Stewart brings him this unmistakable prodigy who's a monster in the gym. And I think that prolonged Cus's life and saved Mike's life.
Tyson's new surrogate family was headed by D'Amato, who was already a boxing legend, having trained 2 world champions. When D'Amato talked, people in the fight business listened. Reporters and camera crews visited the small gym and Catskill home regularly. They saw that Tyson had immense potential, and they noticed he wasn't the typical rough street kid.
Mike was shy. He was quiet. He was affectionate. He would come up to Camille in the kitchen and give her a hug, or even with the other boxers. And in the documentary that we made, there's a time when he takes this kid, Frankie, and just goes like this with him. And he could be playful, and he could be moody. He'd be, sad some days, happy others. And he was very determined about his, the way he was in the gym. He had a lot of concentration in the gym. And he was very fast.
The house, there's a kitchen table, and there's like a bench. It's further that goes around this one, and Mike is sitting there. And I look at him, and he's glaring at me. I look at this kid, and I thought he was probably like 18 or 20 years old. And then when they told me he was only 13, I just couldn't believe it.
I love boxing too, and I like doing it for myself. But I feel so bad, like if anything go wrong, when I look sloppy, so many people that, help me and everything to get me up here, and I just don't want to let them down.
I can remember Mike asking me to borrow my bicycle. And I said, sure, you can take a ride on my bicycle. And he was looking, he just couldn't believe that I would give him my bicycle. Then he broke the pedal, and he was just waiting for me to, I guess, to explode. And when I said, don't worry about it, Mike, it's no big thing, it's just a pedal. And you could just see, he was just shocked that someone, would do things like that for him.
That's it, see, ain't no way he's gonna hit you then, right? And remember, it's always good to throw the punch where you could hit him and he can't hit you. That's what the science of boxing
trained
is
to
all
get
about.
away from punches, not only defensively to save himself, but to create openings for his power and for his speed. And he was taught that specific style, to elude punches, to slip the straight, and to weave the round, and to explode punches in the opening.
I remember Coach showing him how to throw the uppercut with the proper snap. And Mike would come right over here in the mirror and just practice it for round after round.
With D'Amato as the teacher, Tyson became an obsessive student of boxing. Not just technique, its history. While in the gym, he practiced D'Amato's peekaboo style, fighting with one's hands high, as if in a defensive screen. At home, he would spend even more time practicing moves, as he had late into the night in the reform school. And his spare time would be dedicated to studying old boxing films of fighters like Henry Armstrong and Jack Johnson.
He studied the fighters. He studied their mannerisms. He became a boxing expert. He knew more about boxing fights than almost any human being alive.
That's it, there you go. Now you got, again. Who's the last guy to stop? Time.
Teenaged Mike Tyson had found something at which he could excel, and for which he would win praise and recognition. But flashes of his life on the street shone through.
If I think about where I'm going to hit him and how many times I'm going to hit him, I have everything planned ahead of time. And if I hit him in the body once and I see that hurts, I'm going to hit him in the body at least 20 more times. And then if he's still up after the 20 more times, I'm going to hit him to the head.
Well, he was like a sponge. He first of all, part of what makes a guy a good student is their assets, physically and mentally. Great physical assets, obviously. Speed, good reflexes, power, and he had an innate intelligence, which we later found out. But one of the great assets and qualities you need to be a good student is interest.
I remember he was about 17, and I went up to his room in Catskill, and watching now, what fighters do you admire? And he started to talk about Rocky Marciano, Tony Canzoneri, and Carmen Basilio, 3 white guys. And I said, well, why are you studying them? And he says, they all had short arms, they all had to fight guys taller than them, and I want to learn from them how to get inside and overcome a reach disadvantage.
I can remember one day we were sparring, he hit me with just this ungodly body shot. And it knocked the wind out of me. And I was saying to myself, if he throws another punch, I'm falling down, And I was like, the only thing I could do would feint a punch. And then there's a light here that shows when the light came on, I come walking to the corner, and I could barely breathe. And I can remember Teddy saying something to me, and I'm like, I can't catch my breath. It was just so powerful. I remember there were guys from Albany who were very experienced amateur fighters. They'd come down once or twice, spar with Mike. Gone. You would never see them again.
Tyson chose a nickname, the Tan Terror, and started winning a series of fights. The victories, generally by quick knockouts, started making the local papers. But his growing reputation caused him problems. It became hard to find anyone to step into the ring with him in the local boxing cards known as smokers.
They'd go down to the Apollo Boxing Club in the South Bronx, and they would have lots of fights there. Nobody would fight Tyson. He was 15 years old. Nobody wanted to get in the ring with him. Sometimes when Cuss would have the professional sparring partners come up to the gym, they would let Tyson go a few rings with him. They didn't want to fight with him.
In '83 and '84, when he graduated to the senior division, where he was fighting men. He would be fighting men that, you know, and he was beating them.
Tyson was undefeated in his early amateur bouts, going to the Junior Olympics and dispatching 5 opponents in record time, 4 by knockouts. It was the first step on the way to every boxer's biggest goal, making the Olympic team.
It was the first positive things that ever happened in his life. I mean, and he was getting in the newspaper for more than a police blotter.
The quickest route to boxing prominence is an Olympic gold medal, and Tyson, backed by D'Amato, entered the competition to make the U.S. team. It would prove to be his first disappointment in boxing. His opponent in the finals was Tyrell Biggs. Later, as a pro, Tyson would knock him out. But under the Olympic scoring system, Biggs' light jabs counted as much as Tyson's sledgehammer blows. In the Olympic trials, Tyson lost and didn't make the team.
He really got robbed. He really won. Mike should have been the Olympic champion.
With his Olympic hopes dashed, Tyson went off to fight and win in Europe. Though without a gold medal, marketing Tyson would be tougher. Among the key backers at the D'Amato Boxing Club were veteran fight managers Bill Caton and Jim Career of the promising teenager. Caton came up with a video you're now seeing, a compilation of Tyson's early fights, showing his devastating power.
We made cassettes of all of Mike's fights and got them right out to the television stations.
Even as Tyson was first turning pro, sports writers were not just hearing, they were seeing Tyson at work. His first professional fight was against Hector Mercedes. Didn't last long, and Tyson's reputation grew.
It was in a small arena in Albany, seating only a few hundred people, and that's where Mike made his first appearance against Mercedes. Knocked him out, of course, in the first round.
And he looked like an animal. I mean, when you saw him fight that way, and he fought that ferociously and that well. But what he was really doing was he was being effective. He was technically using what he was taught, and he was real good at it.
Tyson might have been winning in the ring, but outside, he was to suffer devastating personal losses, just as his career was developing. His mother, who had stayed in Brooklyn and who he loved, though he rarely saw her, developed inoperable cancer. Tyson visited her one last time in the hospital, then she quickly died. Suddenly, all Tyson had left was his surrogate family.
I think it was '83 or '82. So then it's at that point, after his mother dies, is when he asked Camille, would you be my mother? And then Cus, I think it was '84, became his legal guardian.
In 1985, Tyson fought 15 pro bouts, all ending in knockouts before the 4th round. But late in that year, as he was marching towards a shot at the heavyweight title, Tyson suffered what would be the most devastating loss of his life. November 4th, Cus D'Amato, the man who replaced what little real family Tyson had, died. Before his 20th birthday, Tyson was once again emotionally alone. The championship fight was 10 months away, but the lessons D'Amato had taught him were what kept Tyson focused as he prepared for the match.
And I asked Mike, as we were driving along one that day, I said, Mike, what would Cus say about this guy, about Berbick? And he said, what do you mean? I said, what kind of fighter do you think Cus would say this guy is? Because I wanted Mike to know exactly what level fighter Berbick was, so he wasn't too terrified, too afraid, too nervous. And Mike thought about it for a second. He said, well, Cus would say this guy's a tomato can. And I said, I just wanted to see if you think the same way I do. He said, yeah.
That was a right to the body and an uppercut to the head, and Berbick is down.
19-year-old Mike Tyson dispatched Berbick in the 2nd round, the former street thug becoming the World Boxing Council's heavyweight champion. Tyson, moments after being handed the championship belt, would dedicate the victory to the memory of his teacher, Cus D'Amato. Mike Tyson's managers, starting with Cus D'Amato, had kept the young boxer in the ring, fighting every 3 or 4 weeks. But as the new WBC heavyweight champs in 1987, consolidating the title, with wins over James Smith, Pinklin Thomas, and Tony Tucker, and defending the crown with a revenge victory over Tyrell Biggs, the man who'd won the Olympic medal Tyson had been denied. In 1988, there would be 3 successful defenses, culminating in the sensational knockout of Michael Spinks in Atlantic City.
Michael Spinks
has to keep moving because every shot. Oh,
uppercut landed inside, and Spinks went down.
That is the first time Michael Spinks has ever been down in a professional fight.
And he's down again and in serious trouble.
Now we know why Butch
But Mike Tyson, the shy kid from Brooklyn with a lisp, had discovered women. Or, more accurately, they had discovered him. He had called himself the Tan Terror as a teenager. But now the papers were calling him Iron Mike.
With fame and money comes attention, and then, you know, things like a lisp or being this big imposing guy, you know, and now all of a sudden your money makes you look good and they don't hear that lisp.
He's Mike Tyson, he's heavyweight champion of the world. Women are literally lining up to meet him. He can pick and choose, and that has to be, for a guy who didn't know how to handle women to begin with, an absolutely devastating experience. I mean, it's a kid running amok in a candy store.
When he knocked out Larry Holmes, he had Robin Givens in one section, Naomi Campbell in the second section, and Suzette Charles in the third section, and they were all very classy women. He fell in love with Robin Givens.
Let's get the lead out.
Yes, dear.
Mike Tyson, the world heavyweight champion, had fallen in love. She was an ambitious young actress whose mother always seemed to be in the picture. He was the champ, worth millions, with the potential for hundreds of millions, but considered immature. The match seemed improbable, but the relationship blossomed suddenly.
Wow, this is great. Unbelievable. I'm with Robin Givens, the star head of the class.
She had gone to Sarah Lawrence. I think she was higher class than he ever thought he would obtain. And I think one of Mike's weaknesses was that he always had very low self-esteem.
We fight Larry Holmes. I'm not exactly sure how it went. Before the fight or right after the fight, Robin Givens tells Mike Tyson that she's pregnant with his baby. Ruth Roper gets on the phone to Jimmy Jacobs and Bill Cate and says, your fighter has made my daughter pregnant. I want him to marry her.
Mike Tyson and Robin Givens were married on February 7th, 1988. Givens would announce she'd had a miscarriage shortly thereafter. Despite that, there were hopes in the Tyson camp that the marriage to the actress would work out.
Of course, the idea of Mike being married was something that appealed to me. I felt it would give him a certain stability. He was a womanizer. There's no other way to describe him. He loved women, and women loved him. And I felt that this was a good step. I was all in favor of his marriage.
The tabloid headlines were still to come. The published reports of fights in the Bernardsville, New Jersey mansion Givens and Tyson had bought. Tyson, though, was already telling his friends that the marriage wasn't working. And those who spent time with Tyson daily saw a dangerous trend, with Robin Givens and her mother taking over.
He beats Tubbs. On the plane ride back, Robin Givens and Ruth Roper announced, I'm Mrs. Tyson. Everything goes through me. And they start spending his money.
Before they got married, she was terrific. She was kind, she was warm, she was considerate. But once they got married, she announced, I'm Mrs. Mike Tyson, and I'm taking over. And when I heard that, I knew we were in trouble. I knew Mike was in trouble. I said, this is going to be bad. This is bad. This is bad. And from then on, she tried to pull him away. And in Tokyo, in '88, after 1 month of marriage, he came in the room one day and started crying. And he put his head on my shoulder. I said, what's the matter? And he said, I made a mistake. I said, what? He said, I shouldn't have gotten married. This is bad. I shouldn't have gotten married. I said, Mike, everything's gonna be okay. It's gonna be okay. I was wrong. I was wrong.
Just how wrong was becoming clear. Tyson and Givens were driving one of his Bentleys when they started arguing. Tyson became so angry that he jumped out of the vehicle and told surprised police officers they could keep it, though the next day he sent an aide to get it back. In training, Tyson looked great as he prepared for another title defense. But outside of the gym, things were getting badly out of control. Robin Givens' mother, Ruth Roper, was painted in newspaper stories as the architect of a scheme to grab Tyson's millions. Givens rushed to her mother's defense on live television.
I plan to be here today because I'm angry, because my mother, who has been the best mother and clearly become Michael's mother, and if you can just see their relationship, it's a beautiful relationship, is really being crushed by all this.
Sensational charges flew. Allegations that Givens and her mother were trying to eliminate the people who'd brought Tyson to greatness. Givens portrayed herself as a loyal wife, trying to protect her husband against boxing sharks, who she claimed were stealing Tyson's money. With a vicious behind-the-scenes battle for control, only in the ring did Tyson seem safe. But that, too, would change.
His fight with Spinks, he may have been one of the two best heavyweights of all time. The moves he made in that fight were extraordinary to knock out Spinks, who was a very capable fighter in 91 seconds. But then he fired Kevin. He broke off from me.
Ruth Roper hits Bill Caton with a lawsuit the day of the fight that I know in my heart Mike Tyson knew nothing about.
1988 became a blur of embarrassments and disasters for the champ. Just 2 months after the triumph of the Spinks fight and the break from his longtime manager and trainer, Tyson was arrested after breaking his hand in a street brawl with Mitch Green, a boxer he'd beaten 2 years earlier in the ring. The argument had begun inside a boutique in Harlem. Green, verbally, hit directly at Tyson's weak spot.
He's a young, dumb knucklehead that got to ask his wife for permission to do whatever he do. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Mitch Green wasn't the only one saying it. And it seemed Tyson would have to choose between his old friends and his new wife. Robin Givens was saying his manager, Bill Caton, had cheated him, that he needed to change the people handling his career. What wasn't widely known was that she and her mother had been getting advice from Don King, the colorful and controversial boxing promoter. King is painted by Tyson's early friends as one of the principal villains in the story.
And it was almost as if Robin Givens was the jab that set him up for the right hand of Don King.
I'm a controversial figure because I succeed in spite of, not because of. Many people that have been beleaguered with the problems that I've been assaulted and assailed with would have been gone a long time ago. They wouldn't even be here.
Don King had become Tyson's new father figure. If Tyson had spent his life in search of someone to replace the dad he'd never had, friends say, starting from when he was very young, often his choices didn't work out.
When you're out in the street looking for guidance, you know, who do you get it from? You know, it's easy to get attached to people. Sometimes you realize later in life that your friends were really your worst enemies.
Mike Tyson was the world heavyweight champion. And on the streets of Brownsville, where he'd spent his early years, there were murals in his honor. But in a throwback to his days on these mean streets, Tyson had broken his hand in a street brawl. Behind the scenes, Tyson's personal life had become increasingly bizarre. The arguments between Tyson and his wife, Robin Givens, continued and escalated, with rumors being printed in newspapers about the most intimate details, some of them completely false.
They inserted into Mike's head that Robin was having an affair with Donald Trump. This was the beginning of the end, because this did two things for Don King. It put Mike's perfect marriage on the rocks, and it also cracked the relationship that Donald Trump had with Tyson.
Trump, the prominent New York developer, had tried to straighten out Tyson's increasing financial and management problems and secured Tyson's fights as an attraction for his Atlantic City hotels. For a while, Trump added stability to Tyson's professional life, but his personal life was increasingly troubled. September 4th, 1988, Tyson was raced to a hospital after he smashed his wife's BMW into a tree. Robin Givens rode in the ambulance and almost battled with photographers trying to take Tyson's picture.
Give the guy a break, okay? Give him a break, damn it, give him a break.
But a newspaper claimed Tyson had attempted suicide after another argument with Givens.
So if anybody wants to kill himself, would he hit the side of the car? He would go straight for the tree. He went on the side of the car. It's scary because I was standing right over here.
I knew it wasn't Mike trying to commit suicide. What I did know is Mike can't drive at all. Mike just can't drive, so I just brushed that off. That was so silly. Why didn't he try it again with another BMW? Had 25 cars. So it was so silly, it was ridiculous.
Michael is intimidating, to say the least. I think that there's a time when he cannot control his temper.
His temper wasn't the only thing getting out of control. Tyson and Robin Givens appeared on the ABC program 20/20, and Tyson sat there docilely as his wife ripped him apart on national television. But the most damaging line about the world champion was yet to come.
Michael is a manic depressive. He is. I mean, that's just a fact. And just recently, I've become afraid. I mean, very, very much afraid.
I like to raise hell, you know, because that's basically my nature. I mean, coming from my background and everything, but I mean, I'm not a violent guy. I would never want to hurt anyone.
One of them was going to hurt each other, and she decided to do it that night to expose what they were going to, because Robin never realized that Mike's buttons were being pushed. When we walked into that house, he was a 200-pound gorilla.
Robin does the 20/20 and paints this brutal picture of Mike Tyson. He looked like he was dazed, like he just wasn't there. It was a few days later that, you know, he blew his stack.
At no time did the police observe Mr. Tyson strike or threaten anyone.
Blowing his stack, this time, meant a huge argument with Givens in which Tyson reportedly hurled furniture out of the window of the Bernardsville mansion the couple shared. Soon the police arrived. They just as quickly left. But Tyson's marriage was in shambles, as was his image.
They convinced Mike that he was manic depressive, which he wasn't. In fact, Mike actually stated to the press that he was manic depressive. They put him, when I say they hired or retained the services of a psychiatrist who put him on lithium, a very dangerous mind-altering drug, so that, and kept reminding Mike to take the drug, which he should never have taken in the first place.
It was time for major damage control, and Tyson's longtime friend stepped in, hiring their own psychiatrist.
When I saw him, he showed no sign whatsoever of psychotic thinking or behavior, and none of the criteria that are required to establish a diagnosis of manic depressive illness.
Givens was on the way out. But despite the favorable diagnosis, Tyson's temper was so frayed that one morning when he spotted a cameraman taping his training run, he hurled his Walkman at the lens. Tyson wouldn't admit it, but his breakup with Givens was not something he wanted. His friends say he really was in love with his wife.
I made a huge mistake. I forgot what it was like for a young guy to think he was in love, to be in love, to think you're in love, and lose the woman of your dreams, to lose this woman. For whatever reason, Mike was distraught. He didn't show it, he's a professional, but I should have realized he was that sad, that emotionally distraught. And I should have stayed with him, I should have been with him, I should have taken him on a trip somewhere to make him forget his troubles, and he would have been fine. That was my mistake.
Because everything was chaos. I was fighting with a wife, with managers, you know, with promoters and managers fighting. I was torn between everybody because I wanted to be loyal to everyone. I never had a chance to be loyal to myself.
I think he became more and more of a lost soul. Trained less and less, hung out more and more with these pimps and drug dealers and rap musicians. And there was no one in his life to reinforce the positive values, and no one in his life who loved him enough to say, no, you can't do that.
By all accounts, Mike Tyson was headed for a fall. He was still fighting, and for the moment, holding on. But those who taught him and saw him rise were seeing their hard work evaporate. February 25th, 1989, Mike Tyson beat underdog Frank Bruno. But Bruno started strong. Tyson, for the first time, seemed less than invincible in the ring.
He'd no longer slip punches. He came right in straight. He didn't bob and weave. He didn't punch in combination. He was no longer the same fighter he was when he was being taught by Kevin Rooney.
He rocks Tyson in the first round. Rocked him. He doesn't finish him. He should have. He doesn't. Mike knocks him out in the fifth round. I saw 100 mistakes. 100.
Tyson wasn't really challenged when he knocked out Carl Williams 5 months later in a first-round walkover. His next scheduled bout was with Buster Douglas, a title defense with someone who should have been an easy opponent, but Tyson seemed to have lost his intensity, the animal power that had propelled him to the top. He was overconfident, out of shape. Buster Douglas was in shape and proved it, blasting Tyson hard.
Douglas landed that punch, but he was beating Mike the whole fight. And if you look at that fight from the introductions on, Mike was not himself. His mind seemed a million miles away. He lacked that animal intensity. It was like an imposter had invaded his body.
Mike never trained for that fight. Mike was in no condition for that fight.
Mike's techniques eroded, and when the other guy starts throwing punches, Mike starts getting hit because he doesn't practice the techniques anymore. And when you add the combination together, and a very finely tuned Buster Douglas, confident, trained, at the right spot at the right time, very relaxed, trying, doing his best, it was the wrong combination for Tokyo. And Mike got knocked out in 10 rounds.
It's over. It's over.
Mike Tyson has been knocked out.
And when I was champion, I gave everybody a chance, and I didn't like anyone making any kind of excuses when I beat them. So by all means, I'm not going to make any excuses. I lost. The reason I lost, you know what I mean, not irrelevant. Just a loss is a loss.
You take the bitter with the sweet, so we don't crack.
And I still believe I'm the best fighter in the world. Just give me another chance. The titles are meant to be won, and they're meant to be lost. These things happen. But, you know, like I said, I'm the former champion. Just give me a rematch.
Tyson wanted to fight Douglas again, but Don King didn't seem to be pushing hard for the rematch. As the controversy swirled, there were even louder questions about the pairing of the ex-champ and the promoter. Allegations that King's side called sour grapes. Complaints that King should not try to be both Tyson's manager and promote his fights.
A manager tries to get as much money for his fighter as possible. A promoter tries to pay the fighter as little as he can because he keeps the difference between the income and what he pays the fighter. So there's a basic conflict of interest between a promoter and a fighter.
Though he'd started his boxing comeback with a series of 4 impressive victories, Tyson went out of the gym, was alone and isolated. Then Don King asked him to come to the Miss Black America pageant in Indianapolis, saying it would help his tarnished image. Tyson's bodyguard and chauffeur says Tyson was in no mood to go, having spent the day at a memorial service for a friend.
Don insisted that he do this Indianapolis thing. He needed to do this because he needed to go there and represent all the black people of America, and it's your duty, you're a black man, and he hides behind that black rage of black and black and black, and finally he gets to this guy to a point where he says, all right, I'll go. Just leave me alone. Get us 2 tickets and we'll be there. I was on that US Air flight with Mike Tyson that morning prior to boarding when Dale Everett's, Mike Tyson's, Don King's nephew, police officer, shows up. The Don King Mike Tyson to Indianapolis, and I'm to drive one of the Ferraris back to Ohio and wait for Mike to come home.
Hello, my name is Desiree.
Mike Tyson would later say his evening with Desiree Washington hadn't seemed that out of the ordinary to him. But the teenage Miss Black America contestant story, told to a 911 operator, was of a date she'd remember for all the wrong reasons.
I went out with this person in the limousine that night, and the person told me that he had to go in to get his bodyguard and asked me if I wanted to come in for a second. And I said, oh, okay, fine, thinking that this was a nice person. And we went in, and the person started attacking me.
The report coming into Indianapolis Police Headquarters July 19, 1991, was the kind of sad story police hear all the time. But this time, the accused rapist was Mike Tyson, a world-renowned heavyweight boxer.
I came out of the bathroom, and this person was in his underwear. He just basically kind of did what he wanted to do, and he kept saying, don't fight me, don't fight me. And I was like saying, no, no, get off me, please, get off me. And he was like, don't fight me, don't fight me. And the person was a lot stronger than I was, and he just did what he wanted. And I was saying, stop, please, stop. And he just didn't stop. And okay, now who's wrong?
Mike Tyson had met Washington when he was brought to the Miss Black America pageant by promoter Don King. The visit was a publicity stunt in the middle of Tyson's preparation for his first big money fight after losing the World Heavyweight Championship. Tyson had asked Washington out on a date. She'd accompanied him back to room 606 in the Canterbury Hotel, his room, well after midnight. Tyson's account of what happened, recorded on audio tape when he testified before a grand jury, was that the only thing he'd done wrong was not treating Washington nicely after they had sex. He hadn't walked her to the door.
I said, I want you.
You said, I want to be me and you alone.
Yeah.
I want you.
Yeah.
Okay, what did she say?
She said, okay, just call me.
Did you say anything else?
No, I had to leave.
He's grabbed every woman in town.
Mike Tyson was used to fans and victories. But when he came to the Marion County Courthouse, he was headed for the worst defeat of his life. Tyson would see what was left of his glory stripped from him, as a jury of 8 men and 4 women convicted the former world heavyweight boxing champion of rape. Sentenced to 6 years in prison, Tyson was led away in handcuffs.
He's been convicted beyond a reasonable doubt. He's a convicted felon. He's a rapist. He needs to go to penitentiary like everybody else does.
Every minute that Mr. Tyson is in confinement is a minute of
It had
injustice.
been more than half his lifetime since young Mike Tyson had spent his time behind bars. And Tyson's attorneys battled, unsuccessfully, to keep him out of jail pending an appeal. But the conviction on rape charges proved more than a legal knockdown. And it sounded as if it might be the final bell. Mike Tyson seemed to have destroyed himself as spectacularly as he'd burst upon the scene.
Tyson was never meant to be a great champion. He didn't have the character. He was meant to be a shooting star. He was meant to be a sensational shooting star.
But halfway through his sentence, in an interview, Tyson said that when he emerged from prison, he'd fight again. And he declared he isn't upset with a woman who'd accused him of date rape.
I'm not angry at it. I just despise the actions.
Welcome to Larry King Live. Tonight on our King Size Week, Mike Tyson.
So there's no bitterness? Or is there?
I'm not bitterness, but, you know, this is one time I would like to have a little revenge. You know what I mean? I always go from this perspective. Whatever happens, you know what I mean? And sometimes you hit me with your best shot, and we see how I handle it. But when the same thing happens to you, we must always remember never to take it personal. I never take this personal.
Tyson's friends say it was the completion of a tragic circle. Tyson was totally alone. The key figures in his life were gone, just when Iron Mike needed them most.
If any lesson that Mike Tyson has taught me, as my experience, is that
Dr. Elias Cordova. Representing the WBC, we have the president, Jose Sulaiman, the supervisor, Elias Ganem. Representing the Japan Boxing Commission, the chief commissioner, Makoto Hosaka. Introducing to you the officials as they are appointed, the ringside physician, Dr. Kei Suzuki. Timekeeper at the bell, Riichi Hirano. The judges, Larry Rosadia, Ken Morita, and Masakazu Uchida. Now presenting to you the referee in charge of this main event, Octavio Meran.
Tail of the tape, you heard Mike Tyson say before the fight that he's always at a physical disadvantage against his opponents, and here it is again. Height, weight, and reach, all in Buster Douglas's favor. But Tyson, once again, is in great shape at 220.5 pounds. Rules for the fight, the one significant rule, and it is unusual, the 3 knockdown rule is in effect here. Again, Jimmy Lennon.
His record, 29 wins, 4 defeats, 1 loss, 1 draw, with 19 wins by way of knockout. He's ranked number 3 by the WBC, number 4 contender in the WBA. Please welcome the challenger, James Buster Douglas. And his opponent, the defending champion on my left, really needing no introduction the world over. He's ready to fight out of the red corner and attired in black trunks. Hailing from Catskill, New York, he weighed in at a ready 220.5 pounds. His outstanding record, 37 wins, no defeats, with 33 big wins by way of knockout. He's making his 10th defense of the heavyweight crown, introducing the undefeated, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, the one and only Iron Mike Tyson.
Give me a break, please. Gentlemen, remember the dressing room instruction. Shake hands and good luck, both. Everybody out.
Douglas insists that he's going to shock the world in this fight. If he should upset Mike Tyson, it would make the shocks in Eastern Europe seem like local ward politics.
He would shock most of the world if he could make it into the middle rounds.
Well, he has convinced Mike Tyson this very first round.
Buster Douglas is a conventional fighter who likes to work behind a stiff left jab.
Break! Break! Get him off on you, Buster. Get him off on you. Get him off on you, baby. Get off on you, baby. Get him, baby. Get him, baby.
I'm surprised to see Buster moving so well. I mean, he's really, I think the weight has made a difference in his upper body movement and his legs. Keeping that jab out there. He wants to tie Mike up every time Mike gets inside. And the problem a lot of fighters make is the fact they drop that right hand of theirs, and Mike Tyson's left hook is no cupcake.
Keep in mind that Carl Williams looked pretty loose and relaxed against Tyson until Tyson hit him with a body punch about 45 seconds into the bout. Mike has not yet gone to the body against Douglas here.
Well, the left jab of Buster Douglas is incredible because he's one of the few guys I've seen other than Larry Holmes and maybe a handful of guys that can put a guy down with the left jab. So the left jab is the key weapon for Buster Douglas.
He fought a sculpted Adonis named Mike Williams on the undercard of Tyson Spinks and floored him twice in the early rounds with the left jab.
Hey! Both heads!
We're almost 90 seconds in, and as yet, Tyson has done no real damage to Buster Douglas. Douglas punching on the break, and he gets a warning from Octavio Meran. Now Tyson begins to step in behind the left jab. He landed twice.
Watch the right hand of Buster Douglas. But the problem I'm still seeing is the fact he steady drops that right hand after he throws it.
Through a snappy-looking right-hand lead. And then tied up and on-rushing Tyson.
See, Mike has to be careful also because Mike's standing in front of him, too.
Couple of right hands by Douglas. Tyson landing the jab again, and Mike misses with the right.
With taller fighters, Mike has to really work extra hard to get inside. And see, this is to Buster Douglas' advantage.
Okay.
Left jab lands again for Tyson. He has not yet gone to the body. Against Frank Bruno, Tyson basically forgot Bruno's ribcage for the first 4 rounds and paid a bit of a price for it. Once he went to the body in round 5, the fight was over pretty quickly.
See, Douglas is not allowing Mike to work his body. He's trying to tie him up inside. In fact, he's doing a pretty good job here.
Another right-hand lead by Douglas, and Tyson lands the left hook.
That was a good round for Douglas, and I gave it to him. Probably the best round I've ever seen him fight.
アメリカ・ニューヨーク市ブルックリン生まれ1966年6月1985年3月37戦全勝37勝のうちには33の KO 勝ちが含まれております。対します青コーナー挑戦者ジェームス・ダグラス、アメリカ オハイオ州コロンバスの出身、1960年4月生まれ、1981年5月、戦績35戦、25年のオハイオ地域を9勝のうちには16の総合が含まれております。セコンドアウト。
That was a very docile round for Mike Tyson, throwing only 13 punches. But a number of jabs, excuse me, but a number of fighters have had good first rounds against Tyson, and that was it. Let's see if Douglas can sustain it, Jim.
Keep in mind that Tyson, a little more than 3 weeks ago, was knocked down in training by Greg Page. And there was some talk here that he was not as sharp as he has been for previous bouts. You never know until he's in the ring.
Hey, don't do that. Every time that Mike comes inside, apparently Douglas has been doing a lot of watching films because he takes a move. He steps to his right, give him a little angle.
Douglas giving as good as he gets inside right there. He outlanded Tyson by punch stat computations, 22 punches to 8.
A very hard right hand by Douglas inside that Tyson walked right into. And right through, I might add.
Left hook by Tyson was partially blocked by the right glove of Buster Douglas. We talked about intimidation before the fight. Douglas has so far shown no signs of being intimidated.
See, what they want from Tyson's corner, they want to see more upper body movement and also more punches thrown as opposed to the one big punch. And that's what Mike Tyson's doing now.
Another right-hand lead lands for Douglas.
Douglas not afraid. That is apparent. And what's happening, Douglas starting to get his punches off first, which is the key to boxing. You get your punches off first.
He's got pretty quick hands for a big man.
Well, the lighter Douglas is, the faster his hands are, the more accurate his punches are.
Not a lot of power. As Larry referred to when he talked about Tyson walking right through the solid right.
I wouldn't necessarily say that because I think Tyson has a pretty good chin, and he's compact. And what's happening, every time Douglas throws a shot, in fact, it was a good body shot by Mike Tyson.
First good body shot he's thrown.
Tyson keeps that chin tucked in.
As you watch Buster Douglas try to tie Mike Tyson up inside, remember that fighters such as James Tillis and Mitch Green and Bone Crusher Smith have thoroughly frustrated Tyson at times with just that tactic.
What I'm seeing now, Mike Tyson to reach in. When you reach in, that's what happens.
Another good right hand and a good right uppercut and 2 more good rights by Douglas. I don't think I've ever seen Tyson absorb that kind of a 4 or 5 punch combination before in his professional career.
Now Mike is not going on, he's not attacking Buster Douglas, which indicates that there is some respect here.
And also a little puzzlement, Ray. He just doesn't seem to know how to go about it. That's another good round that I gave to Buster Douglas.
I don't think there's any doubt about that one.
Close the gap, Mike. You ain't inside enough. All right? Come on now.
That's just 7. Just come in. Be calm.
7-7. Don't ain't that too much.
Just like you on the pads. Relax.
Same you had me bouncing inside, man. Get inside. Don't lay back, Mike. Remember, it's real hard aggression, Mike. You're moving your head to get in there. You just
now let's take a look at that combination. Douglas firing away. That right was high. Came back with a nice short left, a left jab. Came up with a right and a left that missed. And there he comes back, still punching. Ordinarily, in that kind of situation, Ray, Tyson likes to duck, let the other man fire and finish, and then come back with his punch. And what Douglas did so cleverly was to smother him and not give him a chance to throw back.
And that's what I'm surprised about, that Mike has not retaliated after his opponent throws his combination.
And listen to these numbers, guys. By punch stat computations, in the first 2 rounds, Buster Douglas landed 52 punches, Mike Tyson 16.
Well, I don't know if he's going to shock the world, but Douglas has shocked me so far.
Mike Tyson now is really furious now. He's really rushing this man coming in, but they may fall in the hands of Buster Douglas.
Good left to the body by Tyson. That's the kind of blow which has done a lot of damage to previous challengers.
You hear his corner, Tyson's corner saying, be smart, work your way in.
Another good right, but Tyson comes right through it.
Douglas still outlanding Tyson, out-throwing it.
Again, Jim, the yellow from Tyson's corner to work your way in, not to walk in there because that jeopardizes you, put you in a lot of trouble.
Douglas accurate with the jab. Miran telling him not to hold and hit.
No. Now what Douglas can't do, he can't allow himself to get frustrated and try to exchange with Tyson. That could be fatal. I'm surprised I don't see as many body shots thrown by Mike Tyson. That would bring those hands down of Buster Douglas.
Right hand by Tyson moving in.
Hey, don't use your hand. Both? All right. Punch it, buddy. Punch it.
Left and a right by Douglas. Tyson seems a little more precise in this round as he tries to move in, but it is still Douglas who is throwing and landing more often. Working the fence. Those right-hand leads have been very effective.
They have been, but also you got to get those hands back up. What's Douglas doing? He's not allowing Mike to get his punches off to the midsection.
Although there was a right hand to the rib cage there.
Again, the yellow from Tyson's corner combination, not one punch. And that's why Douglas is able to get his combinations off, because he's only expecting a one-punch retaliation.
Break.
Tyson's trying to leap in behind the left hook. He landed that one under Douglas's chin, near the middle of the chest. Douglas with another right hand to the top of Tyson's head.
All right.
Again, Tyson's corner yelling, you've got to punch inside.
No, don't do that. All right, no, hey.
Good solid left jab by Douglas. Tyson grazed him with the right.
Free. 6-4-1 inside. Don't just stand there and look at him. You gotta work.
You're not closing the gap, Mike. You got to get inside by jabbing and moving your head. When you get in the inside, you got to punch. All right? Come on, yo. Punch, Mike. Jab, overhand, right, come back into your foot. Okay? Relax. You're too flat-footed in there.
All right.
Okay?
Trust in what you know. Do it. Let it go. Don't be so cautious with the punches. Let them down.
7-7. You get in there. Right.
Don't sit there and look. They can't. Your bail, Buster. Your bail. Keep sweet.
This is the first time since Kevin Rooney hasn't been with Mike Tyson that he's needed some answers from the corner. Let's see if he's got the right answers. They're trying to make him just fight, not look to just wing big punches, expecting Douglas to fall the first time he lands something.
And the man who does most of the talking in Tyson's corner and who leans forward to whisper in his ear is Aaron Snowell.
If you watch what Douglas is doing now, he's trying to double that jab up. And see, the second jab is not really hard, but it blinds you for a fraction of a second. That's when you drop the right hand. And you notice Douglas is trying to throw not just one jab, but two jabs.
Wait, when you do that. Up your head.
There was an expression on Tyson's face, and I can relate to that, because sometimes you get into the ring, Jim, you just don't have it. Things just don't click in. And maybe that's what he's feeling now. He's just not on.
Well, we're in round 4 and a lot of ringside spar. It should be pointed out that stamina has been a problem for Buster Douglas throughout his career. And in the last 2 weeks, he's been bothered by respiratory illness here. Was taking penicillin just this past week and antihistamines. You have to wonder how far he can go at this level of effectiveness.
Hey. Break. Boom. Step back.
Douglas still landing the jab and then stepping away. Tyson seems less aggressive than is normally the case, perhaps a little frustrated.
Well, Buster Douglas definitely is inspired because of the tragedy, the passing of his mother. And it reminds me of when Howard Davis' mother passed during the 1976 Olympics. It really motivated him because he was doing it for Mom.
Everyone in Douglas's camp said that would be the case today. He was extremely close to his mother. Right hand by Douglas right on Tyson's chin.
The double jabs, especially with a big man, is difficult to penetrate. Always difficult to penetrate.
Critics of Tyson say that since the departure of Kevin Rooney, he has been increasingly easy to hit. There's very little head movement here today.
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. Mike Tyson is Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's a natural fighter.
You don't think that the loss of Rooney as trainer has made any difference?
I don't really believe that. But one thing about it, I guess that must be a little contradictory, but normally to keep the same family, it's always a plus. But then again, sometimes you must change.
As you did.
Yes. Good left hook by
Douglas again with a left and a right. And now Tyson lands a right hand and backs Buster up, but here he comes.
Mike throws punches. Mike is dropping his hands, which is very dangerous.
Well, if Mike Tyson, who loves pigeons, was looking for a pigeon in this fight, he hasn't found him.
You got to use that 7 to get inside, Mike, to back this guy up, and you got to move that head. All right? Get that rhythm.
And there, of course, is Evander Holyfield, who has a guarantee of $12 million to fight Mike Tyson in June. And right now, that $12 million isn't in the bank.
Okay? Come on, you want all 4 rounds. You got to hold your concentration. Now, you'll come back. Everything will be there. Everything will be there, champ. Come back, okay?
You work at Douglas, people. Tell Douglas he's won all 4 rounds. And shockingly, I agree with them.
Trainer J.D. McCauley and manager John Johnson very calm in the Douglas corner. He's thrown 114 jabs in the bout, and by punch stat computations, he has landed almost half of them. Extremely effective working behind the left jab. Buster Douglas. Now Tyson lands a jab. This is the round in which Tyson turned things around against Frank Bruno. Right hand by Douglas lands again. He's been very quick with it.
No, Mike, no.
Douglas getting the breathing here. Very smart, very, very smart. He throws his combinations, then he ties them up.
There's just no head movement there, Ray. Mike is a stationary target for this guy.
Well, that's the reason his corner is so petrified, because they see that Mike has become somewhat of a stationary target directly in front of Buster Douglas. That's why the right hand's been hit landing.
Okay.
Now, this is totally uncharacteristic of Mike Tyson. He's right there in front of his opponent, not doing anything, just reaching in. There's that right hand again. It's going to happen every time.
Another right hand, and now Tyson seems to be wobbled. Mike is not throwing back. Buster Douglas is completely dominating this round with jabs and right crosses.
But what's going to do some damage now? Buster Douglas throw an uppercut.
Tyson leaps inside with a left hook.
No.
One punch at a time, though. That's all he's throwing.
There's the uppercut.
Absolutely, the opening is there.
Buster Douglas is so relaxed, and this should save him in the later rounds if it should go that far.
No. It appears, Ray, that James Douglas is fighting a master fight in the geometry of the fight. Every time that Tyson appears ready to throw, he either ties him up like he just does, or he just backs off a little bit and ruins his timing.
Thus far, he's fought the perfect fight because he's not being a stationary target, although he's not really running around.
There's a lot of swelling above Mike Tyson's left eye, and it is partially closed. And that is from the right-hand leads that Buster Douglas has landed almost at will throughout the fight.
That left jab of Buster Douglas is a measuring stick. Very strong. Watch it come out, and then he drops the right hand.
Well, I think you'd have to say this is the most trouble Mike Tyson has ever been in at this stage of a title defense.
This is the most trouble Jimmy's ever been at any stage of a title defense.
Now, Mike doesn't get hit by lead right hand.
That's another round for Buster Douglas.
And he even dominated the exchange after the bell.
You remember at the top of the show, I said the good news is Buster Douglas always fights his best against the best opponents. This is even better news than that from his point of view. And he has swelled up Mike Tyson's eye and is dominating the fight right now. Now just watch this combination. A long right, a left jab hook somewhere in there, and he has been doing this over and over. Every time Tyson is willing, takes a punch and wants to fire back, Douglas fires back before he can.
You begin to file through your memory for the biggest upsets in heavyweight championship fight history.
Second out.
I don't think there would be anything like this.
I agree.
This would create a new standard of upsets if this went on.
Clay and Braddock, not as big as this.
Great. Step back. All right.
Question is the stamina of Douglas, as you pointed out. Stamina has never been a problem for Mike Tyson opponents in the past.
And I would question the stamina of Buster Douglas at this kind of pace, Larry, but again, he is so relaxing there.
By punch stat computations, in the 5th round, Buster Douglas outlanded Mike Tyson 3-1, 33 punches to 11. If anything, his dominance is increasing.
Again, the leadoff rights, I'm very surprised they're landing like they are.
Tyson landed an uppercut inside. And another right-hand uppercut by Tyson. Douglas doesn't appear hurt.
Well, as long as Douglas stay there, he's going to play right into Mike Tyson's hands.
But the thing about all of this, Jim and Ray, is that he's never given Tyson a chance to use those amazingly fast combinations. Even when he gets hit, it's one punch and he smothers him, or he fires back.
The combination which destroyed Bruno and which has been so effective against a lot of opponents is the right hand to the body, followed immediately by the uppercut.
And that punch lands when a guy's against the ropes or in a corner.
And Douglas has not been there. Tyson finally blocked the right hand lead.
Sorry.
Little more peekaboo defense from Tyson now, as he is clearly aware of the closing left eye.
And that becomes a factor, especially for the very first time. Experience plays a major role in that kind of handicap.
One of the things that his great mentor, Cus D'Amato, used to tell him was, it's no virtue to get hit, keep your gloves up. And Mike Tyson, in recent fights, which have been so easy for him, has forgotten that advice and has kept his hands down. Now you see he's so worried that he's going back to what was called the peekaboo style of defense. He's got his gloves back up again.
All right.
What I don't see is the upper body movement from Tyson, and that's why Douglas is able to land those kind of punches.
No head movement. Tyson winging inside with a left and a right. Douglas again ties him up.
Lead off right once again. Mike needs to pick the tempo of the fight up. He has to make Douglas work. So far, he has not done that.
Douglas not quite as quick and active in this round as he has been in previous rounds, but there's very little drop-off. And the champion looks frustrated. Missed with the leaping left. A confident Douglas goes back to his corner, well ahead on points, you have to assume.
I gave that round to Tyson, the first one I have.
You're still laying on the outside on this guy. You got to back this guy up, right? You got to go to his body. Once you get inside, you got to punch, Mike. You definitely got to punch when you get in there, all right?
When you get inside, don't look to home. Use your hands. Set on your knees.
You got your 2 punches.
Grease. Give me some grease.
Grease.
Just the right hand.
Come on, what should you do now, baby? Stay alert. It's your fight. Your show. You understand me?
Grease, baby. You got it won. Just stay in control.
Stay alert.
Control. This fucking guy's scared to death.
That jab.
Push shit on him.
That jab's a shot, baby. The jab right hand.
Yeah. All right.
you gotta punch your hand. Lots of sevens. Everything off of sevens.
All right.
Past the midway point of the scheduled 12 rounds, few at ringside thought that Buster Douglas would make it this far. He had dominant showing over heavyweight champion Mike Tyson.
If this fight was being held in the States, the crowd would be in an uproar right now.
Here they are eerily silent. Douglas continues to outland Tyson at close quarters and then to tie him up.
It has made an enormous difference in the talent of Buster Douglas by shaving off those pounds. He's so much quicker, he's so much agile, and he's so much accurate now. Buster needs to move a little bit more. He's standing, now he's starting to become stationary.
Right there. Now, punches. Punch. Great. All right.
Low blow by Tyson. Miran was behind Douglas and didn't see it. Douglas with another right hand, looping over the top.
It's a great tempo for Douglas. Notice his hands are down.
Tyson still leaping and lunging behind the left hook, desperately trying to change the tempo of the fight. Another low blow. This time Miran saw it. Another right hand lead for Douglas, partially connected. Left jabs right on Tyson's face.
This is the first time I've seen a big man in the ring with Tyson use his physical attributes, the height and reach advantage.
Tyson's corner liked what it saw with the left uppercut. It was almost 25 years ago when a 7-to-1 betting underdog named Cassius Clay thoroughly frustrated and whipped a Sonny Liston in Miami Beach at a time when Liston was regarded as invincible. You have to go back that far to find something this shocking in a heavyweight title fight.
No combinations by Mike Tyson.
You gotta throw combinations, right? All right, don't relax. All right, you're down. You're down on the corner, right? You gotta gut this motherfucker. You gotta draw because
Don't relax. Double your jab every time it comes to you, and the right hand's only going to travel. Beautiful work, champ. Beautiful work. Keep busting on that eye. Stay strong, Buster. Stay alert. Everything else is in your
It happened in training. It was dismissed. Tyson has been down before in training. Nobody takes it too seriously. But there you saw Greg Page step in with a right hand and Tyson go down. In fairness, I don't know how you can relate it to what happened here, except that Mike Tyson is anything but the dynamo, this dynamic terror that we're used to seeing. Buster Douglas has neutralized him, frustrated him, beaten him to the punch.
By punch count statistics, Tyson is averaging only 23 punches around. He's going to have to step up the activity if he's going to turn things around here. That knockdown in training took place just a little bit more than 3 weeks ago. Everybody from Don King on down in Tyson's camp said it was no play acting, it was for real. Off this performance, I think you'd have to say yes, it was definitely for real. The graphic you you saw between rounds demonstrated the huge disparity in jab effectiveness. Buster Douglas thoroughly dominant in that department so far. Another solid straight left jab right to the middle of Mike Tyson's face.
I'm watching the legs of Buster Douglas. There's a lot of spring to his legs, which means there's a lot of life to his legs.
We're in the 8th round, folks. A heavyweight champion regarded as completely invincible in these circumstances is in big trouble.
Get it on. Come on. Right there. Punch it. Don't relax, Jeff. Don't relax. All right, give him back. Hang in. He got him. Work in there. Cut him out, Mike. Fight. Right there. Don't let him walk. Come on, get it out. Get it out. Hey.
Did you imagine Buster Douglas, undisputed heavyweight champion of the world?
Well, it's not over yet, Jim, but I tell you, he's put a good account of himself up.
It boggles the mind.
Well, he's asking some questions of Tyson that Tyson hasn't been asked before. In the second half of a fight, he's got to come back and win it.
Look at the punches.
These right-hand leads are not diminishing in effectiveness, guys. He is still landing just about all of them.
Double jabs, lead off right hands. And now he's starting to back Mike up.
No, lay back.
Hitting on the break, Moran didn't say a word to him about it.
There's a little swelling under the left eye now of Mike Tyson.
Still beating Tyson to the punch, Ray.
Well, there's just no question which is the more confident fighter now. You see how easily Douglas is dominating the action inside.
And Tyson is holding on.
I've never seen this happen before with Mike Tyson. He's always